Hello and welcome back. Now we're live again. Today I'm gonna continue with the PHP course for beginners that's linked in the description below. In our last episode we discussed variables. We learned about variables and how they're useful. I showed you how we would typically use a variable in something like a weather application, for example. And in this one, from the looks of it, we're going to learn about conditionals and booleans. Shout out to Laricas, and the full video, PHP for beginners, the entire course is linked in the description. Go follow them. They're easily the best website, easily the best resource for PHP and Laravel learning. All right, let's dive right into it.
Okay, welcome back. So now that you're a bit more comfortable with variables, I think the next topic we should tackle is conditionals. Let's get going, and I have an example for you. And what I'd like to do here is dynamically render a message that indicates whether or not you've read a particular book. So let me grab one real quick. All right, here's the closest one. What do we have here? We have Dark Matter, really good book. I highly recommend it. Okay, so when we're done, if you've read the book, it should say something like, you have read Dark Matter. Okay, so let's boot up our server. But this time, rather than manually writing it out, most terminals allow you to press up to cycle through your previous commands. And I'll do that this time. All right, then I can command.
By the way, I'm going to show you another trick here as well. So I have pressed up and booted up my server, but instead what I can do is Control C to stop this. So it stopped it. I can press Control R and search for a command. So Control R, and I think I did local. See, there you go. That's it. So what I did was Control R, LOC, and that's it. It found the command. So if you're this helps you go back to a command that you had previously used, but it's not necessarily the last command that you had used. So it's super useful. It's Control R and search for the command that you had pressed. It's in most terminals. I'm using PowerShell here, by the way. Anything like Bash or ZSH should work. Control L. I said Control R. Excuse me. Control R.
Click on the URL. All right, and sure enough, as you'd expect, we get our static message. But now, real quick, let's write a little CSS. So I will right-click, choose Inspect, and I'm going to select the body tag here. And even if you're not comfortable with CSS, just come along for the ride. I'm going to set a display of grid on the body, and then I'm going to use this place items property to put everything in the center. But right now, the body is only as tall as its content, which isn't very tall at all. So let's set the height of the body to 100% of the viewport's height. And what this will do is perfectly center it on the page. All right, so I'll bring that back, or I can press Shift-Command-C. And then one last thing, let's set the margins to 0. Okay, and then actually one more. Font family, let's set it to sans serif. All right, that's all the CSS we're going to write here. So I will select that, switch back to PHP Storm, and then in my head tag, I'll do it inline here, and we'll say on the body tag, apply these styles.
Okay, let's go through this line by line and try to understand. So first up, here it is. This is a serif font. We need it to be sans serif. So let me open up a style tag. And select the body. Now, a good trick on wait, is it dot body or just body? I think it's dot body. Let's find out. You know how I like to find out is I just do this and background color. My mic's falling off. Give me a second. Yeah, that's better. So background color red. Okay, if this works, then that means I have the, oh yeah, it did work. So I do have the right. Dot is for classes, I think. Yeah. And the hashtag is for ID. Yeah, so I'm right. Cool. So I want that. I want a font family of sans. Looks nicer. He said display grid, right? And align items center, height 100% or 100% of the vertical height. What else was there? Let's see how that brings us. Okay, align items center, middle, what was it? Place items, not align, place. That's nice. And he did margin 0. I don't think that'll affect much, but let's see. One quick interesting piece of information: whenever in CSS anything is 0, you don't have to mention 0 pixels or 0 m or anything like that. 0 is 0 in anything, so 0%, nothing would change. So whatever is 0 in CSS, you don't have to mention the unit of 0. Oh, what do you know, it did change a thing. It went from here to here. Cool. I think that's it. Grid center 100 h0 and sans. Okay, let's continue.
And now if we switch back and give it a
By the way, I'll put this in chat if you're following along and you're not comfortable with CSS. Chat. There you go. Enjoy.
refresh. Yeah, it just looks a little cleaner to my eyes.
A lot cleaner.
Okay. So now we want to make this dynamic. So how would we do that? Well, let's begin by opening PHP text. So, I think the first thing we should do is turn the name of the book into a variable. So let's do that now. We'll call it name equals a string, and then again, we conclude it with a semicolon. Now, let's reference that variable. Clear this out, open PHP, echo the name, and then close PHP. Okay, come back, give it a refresh, and yeah, we get the exact same thing. Very cool. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is indicate in some way whether or not the user has read dark matter.
Okay, pause. Let's follow along up until now. So I'm going to remove the hello world code from here. And let's say staying within PHP mode. Let's say book. Sorry, I keep doing hashtag when I mean to do the pound symbol, when I mean to do the dollar symbol. Book is I like the book called The Art of Thinking Clearly. And if you're like me, who constantly keeps forgetting the quotes for strings, you can select the text and add a single like press the double inverted comma once, and then your text editor should make the entire thing a string. So we're in PHP mode here. I will go into h1 and say you have read the book. In fact, you have read PHP. There's a different way to do this. You know what? Can I do all of this within PHP mode? I think I can. I can stay here. I can say echo. You have read book. I think that's simpler. Let's see if that works. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to stick with this. So the next thing he says is, have you read so the book or not? So it's a Boolean. meaning have I completed or not? To be honest, I've completed like 80% of it, so I would say no technically, but let's see. I think it would be have read equals or something like completed, or I don't like the word, I don't like the variable read, because to people who don't have English as the first language, so ESL, English as second language people, read and read has exactly the same spelling, so it's a little confusing. So I'll choose to use completed. I don't know if PHP uses underscores or Pascal case or camel case. I'll find out. I'll say false for now. PHP uses Pascal, camel. Yeah, camel case, or what does it use? Class. Oh, okay. Functions use underscores and class names use both camel case. PHP variables. We use lower camel case for variables, so it should be something like this. I think it's called snake case, right? Lower camel case is called snake case, but either ways, it should be something like this. Have completed. I could just say completed. Sorry, naming variables is really hard in programming. Okay, let's continue.
So again, in many cases, this will come from a database. You'll have a database of the user and the books they've read. Have they read it? Have they not? Or sometimes you'll make an API call. Think of that as sort of like an external service that has all of this data. But yeah, right now in our learning, why don't we just hard code this? So has dark matter been read? I'll call it read. And what would I say here? Yes or no? Well, we could do something like this, but generally we use what's known as a Boolean. Think of a Boolean as simply true or false. Has it been read? True or false? In our case, why don't we say true? Okay, so now...
Sorry, I forgot to explain this. In most programming languages, there are a few fundamental types of, let's say, data. Strings is one of them. Integers is another. So integers could be something like number of books equals, let's say I have 12 books. So any number, integer is a number. String is a sequence of characters. Then Boolean is true or false, yes or no. So it's just by default, it's true or false by convention. And those are three basic types of variables in most programming languages. There are a few different ones. So in some programming languages, if for example, I want to know weight of books equals 14.4 pounds or something like that, or price of books, I should rather say, not weight. 14.49 dollars or pounds, whatever it is. So this would be a float, which is a different kind of variable. But in most programming languages, there are just these 3 or 4 different kinds, and that's enough to get you 80% of the way there. Most often we use strings, integers, and booleans. So strings, numbers, and booleans. These are the most common ones. So this could either be false or true. In this case, I'm going to say false. You have not read if it's false. Correct.
Now, think about it. We should check whether the book has been read, and if so, we write, you have read the book. And if it has not been read, maybe we write, you have not read dark matter, okay? So let's see how we might do that. And if you want, pause the video and see if you can figure that out on your own.
Okay, challenge accepted. Thank you. So let's just say if, how do if statements work here? If completed, then it's showing me a squiggly line. Expected, okay. Can I just put this within brackets? If completed, say echo you have read the book, and else, I don't know why it's showing me this. Oh, maybe because I need to add a semicolon here. And else echo this semicolon here. So this is false, it should say no, but if it's true, is that the right syntax? Let's find out. Oh yeah, you have read the art of thinking clearly. False. You have not read the art of thinking clearly. So this is my first time doing this, but it just goes to show you how much programming carries forward, how much of programming knowledge carries forward. So I know how to program in Python and JavaScript. I am not by any means an expert at either of these languages, but because I have some fundamentals, is why I was able to just guess and create my first ever if statement in front of you guys. I don't know if it's correct. I don't know if it's the right formatting, indentation wise, or even syntactically, but let's find out.
All right, great job if you figure that out, but if not, no worries. I wouldn't blame you because we haven't yet reviewed what's known as a conditional. So think of a conditional as a way to create a branch in your logic. Or put more simply, think of it as a way to ask a question. And usually it starts with the keyword if. If such and such turns out to be the case, then I want to do this. But if it's not the case, then I want to do something else. So maybe you're going to lunch. Maybe you're going to Subway. If Subway is open, then let's go in and eat. But if Subway is not open, let's go somewhere else, right? It's a simple question. And we can write that with PHP by saying if, and then open parentheses. And yeah, real quick, notice how when I did that, my editor automatically added a closing parentheses. Most editors will do that these days. All right, next, ask your question here, and then open a curly brace. And once again, my editor adds the closing curly brace. So think of everything that occurs between these curly braces as the logic for what should happen if this question returns true, if this question has a positive response. But in our case, yeah, we can't use basic English here. We have to speak in terms of the language. So in our case, I really just want to say, well, if the book has been read, then prepare a message. So let's clear this out. And I'm just going to say if read, or in other words, if the value for this variable is true, then create a message. And maybe this message will say, well, exactly what we have here. You have read name, just like that. Okay, so now if I come down here, I'm going to replace all of this with an opening PHP tag that echoes the message itself. Okay, but now before we review this in the browser, it's going to work. So spoiler alert, it works. But yeah, did you notice how there's a little squiggly underneath message? Variable message is probably undefined.
Okay, pause. Let's review a little bit over here. There's a famous joke in programming where a computer programmer was going to the supermarket and his wife tells him to get a dozen eggs, and if they have milk, then get a loaf of bread. The programmer walks in only with a loaf of bread because they had milk and he didn't buy the milk, he didn't buy the eggs or anything at all. So that's what so that's how important if statements really are. It's computers can't really mm, um, gauge intent. They don't have any intuition, they don't have any human judgment, so you have to be very explicit. So if completed is true, that means if the book, if I have completed it, then say you have read the book. And if I have not completed it, just say you have not read the book. That was a quick recap. I just wanted to share that joke with you all. Now, what do you guys think? Is this a cleaner implementation? He's chosen to open multiple PHP tags in the HTML document, whereas I've chosen to use just this one, which I feel is cleaner. I'm sure he's doing this, Jeffrey is doing this to teach us that we can use PHP and declare variables in within different contexts of PHP tags in a single HTML document, or rather a single PHP document. But implementation wise, I don't know, are there any drawbacks to doing it like this, or is it all G? Is it all good? I don't know.
So again, when you use a good code editor, it's almost like a robotic assistant that will give you little pieces of advice. For example, what if red was set to false? Well, think about it. What do you think would happen? And if you're working along, pause the video and ask yourself that. What would...
The message would be undefined. So it'll just return a empty h1 tag, meaning a blank page, or maybe it'll throw an error. I think it'll return an empty h1 tag, which means a blank page.
Would happen here? All right, let's come back, give it a refresh. Aha, we get a warning.
Interesting. It throws you an error. But the last time we did this, so for example, if within this I just say that, and if I also create another, let's say h2 tag, and over here I say echo location, and location doesn't really exist here. Okay. Oh wait, I forgot to enter PHP mode. I'll do that. I'll exit PHP mode here. So this, it'll just say you are at without anything after it. See? Same situation, the variable was not defined. But over here he gets an error, undefined variable. So that's an interesting conundrum. I could change this to whatever. I can change this to, let's say, food. It'll give me the same error. If I change this to book, for example, it'll tell me you are at art of thinking clearly. So that's something interesting to note. Sometimes it gives you that variable error, sometimes it just doesn't.
Undefined variable message. But now you might be thinking, wait a minute, wait. We created our message variable right here. So why on...
Hang on, it's a warning, it's not an error. So maybe if I go back and do this, while it should be blank, maybe it shows me anything in the console. Is there an error in the console? None. Okay, thought it was worth checking.
On earth is it saying undefined when I have proof that we defined it right here? Okay, and this is what being a programmer is. You need to go through it line by line to make sure you understand what's happening. So let's do it together. We start by creating a name that evaluates to dark matter, Fine. Then we have another variable called red that is set to false. And then we say, well, if red is true or positive, then, keyword there, then create a message variable. Okay, so let's say that again. If red is true, only on that condition do we create a variable called message. But now, red is set to false, which means this condition, this question, fails. If red, no, it hasn't been read, so don't do anything here. That's what's happening. At no point in this logic do we create the message variable, which is why PHP is squawking at you. Okay, so why don't we do this instead? I'm going to say else, and then once again, between these braces is the logic that should happen if the book has not been read. And in that case, why don't we duplicate this message variable and say you have not read the name of the book. Okay, so now the message that we display to the user is dynamic. So if I come back and give it refresh, you have not read dark matter. But if we toggle this to true, come back, refresh, you have read dark matter. Pretty cool.
So I don't know why we needed the curly braces over there, but if it's syntactically relevant, then let's go for it.
All right, so let's finish up by making just a couple small tweaks or a couple small refactors. First up, right down here where we echo out the message. No problem whatsoever, but as you can imagine, in PHP, echoing the value of a variable is really, really common. So with that in mind, there is a shorthand version, and it looks like this. Okay, so let's talk about it. Actually, real quick, let me prove it to you. Refresh, and now we have you have read dark matter 2 times. So notice less than question equals. That is identical to opening PHP and calling echo. It's the exact same thing.
Interesting.
So if it feels weird to you and you don't want to use it, all right, it's fine, no problem. But I will tell you, most people will reach for this. And then also notice how I was able to omit the semicolon. And that's because immediately after we echo the variable, we instantly close PHP. So in those situations, the semicolon is optional. Keep it if you want, and it might be a good idea right now just to get you in the habit of always concluding a statement, so to speak, with a semicolon. But do know, if you ever see it being omitted, that's why. Okay, so from now on, whenever I need to echo out a variable, I will almost always reach for this particular syntax. And in fact, I'll remove the semicolon. All right, last little thing before I let you go. Notice we have one.
Interesting. So that's why he did it in multiple PHP tags. So what I can do is instead of this, I'll just say, again, message equals this, and message equals this. And I can go here and echo, I think it was this, no. Message, yeah, I was thinking it was this. Still works. Cool. That's interesting.
One more squiggly line here. Condition is always true because red is evaluated at this point. All right, so think about what's happening here. It's helping you out. It's saying, hey, you're asking this question if the user has read the book. But because you set this variable to true, that means 100% of the time, the answer to that question is going to be yes or true. Or in other words, if the answer is always yes, then this logic here, where we proceed if the answer is not yes, will never fire. It's superfluous. Why does it exist? Delete it. And then once again, if the answer is always yes, then why are you asking the question? You could remove that as well. And in our little example here, this is a little more appropriate. But yeah, remember, in real life, the answer to that question will be dynamic. Maybe you've read the book, but John hasn't read the book. Maybe you didn't read it last week, but this week you did. In those cases, you won't know the answer to that question, and that is why the conditional here would be appropriate. Okay, just some things to think about. All right, you're making really good progress. I know we're starting to creep into slightly more complex logic, so keep playing around with this, and when you're ready, move on to the next episode.
Thank you. This is amazing. So learned so much. Just to recap, we learned about true, false conditionals. We learned about different types of variables, strings, booleans, and numbers. We learned about conditionals. We implemented it ourselves. So if else statement over here. And this is something new and important. I had not learned about this before. Instead of echoing something out, I can just maintain the entire logic of the app in a place. So I can just remove this and put it somewhere here in its own PHP tag. Then format this. It should still work. Yeah, it does. So this could be like the logic block of the code, and this could be just this. And in fact, if I inspect the element, it should just show me a h1 element. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Thank you for watching another episode. Shout out to Laracasts. Go give them a subscribe. Jeffrey Way is an amazing teacher. Link is in the description. Catch you again next time. Take care. Bye.